my online, as well as for you to use this resource in your review of information. All right. So this is the Principles of Economics, chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you take microeconomics in the spring, you're going to have the same exact chapters. So you should be able to get an A on your first exam in microeconomics. It's the same exact. We did not branch off into macroeconomics until after your first exam. I think we also do like market failure, the marketplace failure chapter. And then after that first exam, that's when we go into macroeconomics and looking at the aggregate, the big, because that's what we do here. Micro looks at households and firms. All right, so a couple of terms that we want to keep in mind when it comes to chapter 1. First of all, I just want to kind of define economics. In economics is a social science. And let me kind of stop there. It's social because we look at human behavior and choice in some instances. So we look at consumption rates. This is August. I am a fan of the Hallmark Channel, but they're pushing my buttons because they're already advertising the Christmas keepsake week of Christmas movies that they will premiere in November. And this is August, and they're already showing it. But we look at consumption rates. Going into the last quarter of business, which is October, November, and December, there's predictions on how much we consume, what's going to be consumed, and in what markets. As it gets closer to the holiday, and please note that, no matter what holiday you celebrate, the holiday season literally is like, Thanksgiving on. If they can push more of the fall, all of the things start to happen in October. The earlier they can get you out to buy, the better. How many of you take principles of marketing? Okay. You understand marketing deals with psychological activity, how we see numbers. You guys remember odd, even pricing, psychological pricing? They get into your head to see what you're going to buy or how you're going to behave. So economics does that somewhat, but it's a science is because we involve math. All right. So it's of course under business administration. But it is looking at those behaviors and consumption rates and investment rates, but we do it with math, and that means tables, problems, calculations. All right? So it's a social science that determines or tries to determine an optimal mix of scarce resources, okay? Of scarce resources under conditions of unlimited wants. And your book probably has it titled a little different, but that's okay. So let me talk about the complete definition here. We're looking at what's going to work, optimal mix, and we're looking at scarce resources, and there's unlimited wants. So what we're looking at is this mix of resources. So we kind of ask ourselves, then, what are these resources that we're working with? Okay, and this kind of dives a little bit into chapter 2. What are the resources, and why are they scarce? And it also brings into play that with this scarcity of resources, we also have to look at what we're choosing to make this mix, okay? So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here. Let me just move this in regards to what the book says in regards to your economic definition. But when we look at these resources, we call these resources, and again I'll refer to this in chapter 2, factors of production. And in an economic system, every economic system, no matter where they are in the world, there's resources. The resources that we look at are 5. They are natural resources, which is why I asked you on Monday, what is some of the resources that we have here in Monroe County? For the fact that tourism is the big industry here. People are a real big resource here to Monroe County. In Northeast Pennsylvania, what else do we have as natural resources?
Coal.
Coal. What else? Land. What else?
You have springs.
Yes. Anything else? What else do we have in Northeast Pennsylvania?
Trees.
Trees, lumber's a big part. We have slate, which is the reason why we have a place called Slatington. Or, which is, Bethlehem steel, all of those things here. Those are natural to our surroundings. Number 2 is labor. And that's you and me. The investment into your labor force, which is where education comes into play. All right, I'll talk about this a little bit more on Wednesday. Capital. Not talking about necessarily money, but we're looking at investment. So we're looking at equipment, new housing. What kind of investments are happening in your area? All right, so with Monroe County, we've invested in what? What do we got invested in?
Schools.
Schools, yeah. And you had your hand up?
A lot of people buy land that they're not really using yet. Properties.
Yes, that's very, very true. Very true. All right, so investment. Number 4, entrepreneurship, or what we call innovation. This is extremely important to any economic system. There has to be that creativity component where you can innovate and then also reap kind of the fruits of your labor. You can create and actually live off of your creation. And then technology and information. Okay, so I'm just going to put these up here because I'll talk more about that next class. But we have this optimal mix. We've got to make these resources work under conditions of unlimited wants. Unlimited wants. Now, with this economic definition, there's something we call opportunity cost. So tell me the truth. Has anybody read chapter 1? Okay. So talk to me. Let me start here. Talk to me about Oprah Winfrey, LeBron James, and was it Mark Zuckerberg?
Yep.
Okay. Tell me about them and opportunity costs.
The idea in the book was how much they gave up by not completing college to pursue what they pursued. And in their case, it turned out to be greater than what they would have gained from going to college.
Right, or
traditional path.
Right.
So they had to weigh those two things.
They had to weigh. There's a choice. Opportunity cost is what you forego. It's what you forego. Okay, so it is about 9:52 or so on a Wednesday morning. What else could you be doing rather than being in the illustrious macroeconomics class with Professor Britt? What else could you be doing? Sleeping? Working, making some money, but you forego the sleep. You forego the money you can make now because I hope that you understand the educational attainment will position you for better choices and opportunities in the future had you not finished what you're doing here. So that's why we all are here, right? I do it because I just love what I do. But opportunity cost is what you forego. Utility, if you want to write that down, is value. It's the value added. What is the increased value by what you're doing? And then we look at marginal analysis. You will see this term quite a bit, and actually I can use this. I'll just have to erase it. Marginal, in this class, basically we look at change. And we use the Greek symbol of delta. The delta, the change, the marginal change. If I make a choice, what is my difference in consumption, my difference in saving? The delta, the marginal analysis. Okay? Yes.
What did you say utility cost was again? Utility cost?
Is value added.
Okay.
Value added. All right. I just want to go to the ones I want to be able to kind of pinpoint. Principle within economics is something that we look at as we say all other things equal. Ceteris paribus, which is a Latin term. I am not fluent in Latin. What we do in our economic perspective is we kind of gray out everything else and we look at two particular variables, and you guys know this from math. If one happens to one variable, what's the outcome? You know, what's the difference? What is the change? We do this with graphs. So we kind of keep everything else constant and gray everything out, and we're then going to hone in on two variables. So the first model that I'm presenting today is the production possibilities curve, and that's going to look, I think, in your book, it's pizza and robots?
Yep.
Right, pizza and robots. We've been doing pizza and robots for a long time, all right? So if I take all my resources and produce pizza, or if I take all my resources and produce robots, what is the outcome? But I'm graying everything else out. That's what we mean by that term. All right, all other things equal. And again, we're doing that with various graphical expressions. And I understand when it comes to the models and the tables, that's where students have their challenge. The concept is okay, but when I put it in a picture and I'm looking at demand pool inflation and lines are moving, that's where the challenge comes in, to get that connection. But we're actually saying the same thing, but we're just doing it graphically. Another 2 points that we'll need to have in your notes. Difference between micro and macro. I'm not going to spend long on this because this is macroeconomics. But in micro, you deal with individual companies. You can deal with your household. That's microeconomics. It's individual trees. In macroeconomics, we deal with the aggregate. We deal with all households. We look at all international trade, not just at whether or not Apple with the China market, if they're going to be able to do anything, you know, because that's like a big quandary right now anyway. So we're not looking at one particular company, although your assignment does have you do a corporate analysis, but I do that purposefully with your research topic. But macro, we deal with the aggregate, so it's the entire, you can say the entire forest. I look at all of consumption rates, all of the big indicators of inflation and unemployment. Okay? Tell me if you don't, if you need it, but please remember your textbook resources, everything I have here is available to you right on Blackboard, okay? Here's philosophies of econ. Positive economics is what is. It is the current state. It is the cause and effect. Do we have people in this country who are homeless?
Yes.
Do we have people that need food?
Yes.
Yes, that is the state of the union. That is the cause and effect. That is what is currently happening right now. Normative economics is what should be. What should be is that people in the United States should have decent housing. People in the United States should have food. We should have, good school systems. We should have, accessibility to good education. Now, the goal with these 5 factors of production and our philosophy of what is and what should be is what causes us to do programming and legislation, because our goal is to close the gap between positive and normative economics. This is what is, and this is what should be. So the government's responsibility is to keep things stable and moving, and how can we as an economy move closer to what should be? All right? Philosophies. Turn in your book, if you have it, to page 10. I want to talk about the budget line. Not real challenging. Basically, what we're looking at on page 10, figure 1.1, is a budget line. How many DVDs and how many books can we buy? We have a budget. The budget in this problem is let me see if I have it right here. $120. So we have $120. How many of each unit will we buy? How many DVDs? How many books? Okay? Everybody has a budget. Even the richest of the rich have a budget. They can buy a whole lot, but there's still a budget. Even though Big Bill may or may not bend down to get the $100 bill, he still has a budget. All right? So, if you don't have your book, here's basically what we're looking at. How many DVDs, how many books will we buy? And it is a choice. That's what we're looking at. We have resources, but we are making choices. So the number of units, depending upon the price. So if I buy 6 DVDs and they each are $20 a pop, I can only buy 6 DVDs and no books for $120. So that represents this point right here. Okay? So if I do the opposite, I can, with $10 per book, I have $120 to spend. I can buy more books. So what is the choice? What is the choice? That's basically what you get out of this particular model. All right? There's a budget. There's a budget line. We can buy a combination of books and DVDs even below this budget line. But if I do that, what's going to happen? If I buy, let's say if this is DVD and this is book, if I buy 2 DVDs and 2 books, I'm somewhere in here. But what does that mean if I'm somewhere in here?
You're paying
Additional.
I'll have money left over, right? I won't spend all of the $120. Here, this line represents I'm spending all of the $120. This area out here represents I'm over my budget. I can't buy anything out here. I can't buy 10 DVDs and 14 books because I'm out here. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough cash. All right? So this line represents efficiency because I'm spending everything that I make. Don't live like that. But I'm spending everything. So in econ, I want to be at a place where I am efficient. Here you need to write down in your notes, because all the decisions that we make to be efficient. We have to use these factors of production wisely. All right, so how many of you graduated high school maybe a year or two ago? Okay. How many of you remember some folks that were with you maybe your freshman year, sophomore year, maybe half the junior year? But when it came time for pomp and circumstance, you're having the graduation barbecue, you know, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents are coming, and they didn't make the trip. You got your cap and gown on, and they were nowhere to be found. Anybody know some folks like that? All right. It doesn't mean they dropped off the face of the earth. They didn't graduate with you from high school, but they still are potential investments into our labor force. And we have to, as an economy, moving forward, because labor is a resource, we have to be very cognizant of that and make sure that, I'm just going to move to this, make sure that that labor force is engaged in being productive in our economic system. So people who are not working and can be working, that's bad for your economy. So, you know, and this is why we don't have a state budget, why the governor hasn't passed our budget yet, why there's cuts in education, just like boggles me personally, because we are the labor force. If we are not nurtured and cultivated to do better, how is our economy going to grow? Case in point, social studies, probably 4th grade. Can anybody tell me, this is a test of the school system of the Pocono School District. Somebody tell me, what was the incidents and the connotation surrounding the Russian missile Sputnik? Think social studies, I'm talking 4th and 5th grade. What was the connotations around the Russian missile Sputnik? Can anybody remember Sputnik? What was it?
First thing to the moon?
Well, they
Yeah.
not to the moon, but they,
Orbited the Earth. It was the first satellite.
yes.
Not the first satellite, but the first satellite that we sent up.
Well, not we, because Sputnik was Russian.
Yeah, I know, but I mean us as a whole.
Right. But what we were in, and you're correct, what we were in a space race, right? And who won? The Russians won. The United States, we are not good losers. You know, you got to kind of think, you know, rebels with a cause, dumping tea in Boston Harbor. We're not going to pay the king's taxes. You know, we're not good losers. The end result of us losing that space race is the reason why the Head Start program was approved in the United States in the legislation of 1964 for Head Start. Because the government realized that we have to cultivate a labor force, specifically in science and math, so that these children are ready to learn. They have a head start to get us to where we need to be in the space race, right? Because you don't know who has the capability to be able to design something in aeronautics engineering that's going to catapult us further in the space race. So the reason why and main crust for Head Start programming legislation to be passed in 1964 is because we lost the space race to the Russian missile Sputnik. Okay? So understanding, cultivating that, making sure that we're where we need to be. In regards to our first model, so let's turn into the, kind of work to some problems. Turn to page 12 and 13 if you have your textbook. The first model that I'm going to talk about today is the production possibilities model. In other economic texts, they call it the production possibilities frontier. It is a choice between two areas or two variables. So it shows the combination of two goods. And in that line, just as we had the budget line where we have to be efficient, there can be no waste, and that includes, a brain, aptitudes, those kinds of things. There has to be efficiency. We have to engage our resources the best to our ability, and what are the choices we are going to make. Now, here they're looking at the choice between consumer goods and capital goods. Capital goods, think of that in regards to business, industry goods. Consumer goods are the stuff that we buy all the time. So in your textbook on page 13, they have the choice between robots and pizzas. But if you look down on the bottom of page 12 in table 1.1, there is a table that goes along with this model. And how many of you can look at a book or next to somebody that has a book? I don't have anybody here on the front row. But look at table 1.1. Share. Remember, we learned it in kindergarten. All right. So table 1.1, the production possibilities of pizzas and industrial robots. The type of product is either the pizza or the robot. And then we have these production alternatives. And we have 5 columns, A, B, C, D, or E. What this is a table of choice. So if I decide to take all of my factors of production and produce only robots, I'm looking at column A, I can produce 10 robots and 0 pizzas. If I do the opposite and take all of my resources and produce nothing but pizzas, I will produce 400,000 pizzas and no robots. Columns B, C, and D are the choices that I'm making in between A and E. So these choices are then plotted on a graph. And the graph looks like this, which is on page 13. So those are my 5 choices. Again, if I look at the table with the graph, if I produce all robots or if I produce all pizzas, that's A and that's E. B, C, and D are some combination of each within. This tan area represents points within this model I can attain. I can produce 4 robots and 2 pizzas, right? But if I do that, I'm falling somewhere beneath that blue line. And if I do that, I'm experiencing waste because I'm not engaging all of my resources to the best of their capability. So that's what I mean, going back to someone who didn't graduate high school and they did not fall off the face of the earth, but are they engaged? Are they productive? Are they adding to our gross domestic product? And I'll get to that when we get to chapter 6, all right? Are they involved? Are they productive? Because if they're just kind of not engaged, then they are wasting the potential and the aptitudes that they could be engaging in our society and in our economy. So the tan area is attainable, but it's inefficient. The blue line represents full employment and full production, meaning every resource that I have is engaged. The area where the point W is unattainable, just like our budget line. We can't get there. All right? So these are the choices that I have. And so with this particular model, we're going to then be able to do some problems. So I'm kind of segueing into chapter 1 appendix. A couple of things we need to keep in mind with this particular model. The law of increasing opportunity cost. What does that mean? That means the more I choose of pizzas, I give up the potential of producing robots. The more I choose of robots, I give up the potential of producing pizza. So it's a law of increasing opportunity cost of what I forego. What is it that I'm foregoing because I'm making a choice? We live and die by the choices we make, right? So we end up as an adult, as a rational thinking adult, we end up where we are in life based upon the choices that we make. So when we look at choices in an economic system, It is how much do I decide to produce of one product versus another? What does that mean in regards to my outcome? But I cannot have any waste. I must be efficient. So that production possibility has that concave shape because of choice. Because of choice. If you have your book turned into page 17, we're going to look at a movement of this model. So we see where our line is, our blue line, but as an economy, we don't want to just stay there. We want to engage more, we want to do more, we want to do better. We want to grow. And we'll get into economic philosophy, whether bigger is better and more is better. But for the most part, we want to move. We want to move that needle. In order to move that needle, I'm just going to move on because this is just marginal. I'm going to get to where we go. All right. How do I move that line out further? How do I bump it out? And that is via technology. Yes.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
you're asking a question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, go ahead.
Well, from what I understand is in order to have economic growth, you will need some type of technology. Long run, population increase might help.
It might. It does. As long as the population is cultivated and nurtured via education. I'm going to stand on my soapbox, right? Because, come on, let's face it. A high school diploma in and of itself is not going to get you much. You've got to have, if it's not a degree, all right, I'm in higher ed, understand that. You've got to have some type of training that's specific beyond the high school diploma. So even if it's like, and I don't want to get on another soapbox, but I'm an advocate for higher education because I'm an academic. However, I do not discount the trades. Individuals who are certified in HVAC and electricians and plumbing, all of our trades, they are extremely challenging to complete, and they are necessary in our economy. So, like, I need a plumber at my house to fix something. I'm scared to dial the digits because I know it's going to cost so much money. So that, technology, yes, but I always do a caveat on that, and I don't want to forget the trades. In decades ago, I was in grad school, and I was doing an internship as well being a graduate student, and and I was with Penn State, I had to find a glass blower for the chemistry department. And this is kind of HR function, that employment I had to do. You know how hard it is to find, and they had to be certified because the chemistry, you ever see glass blowing? That is an art. And it was paying top dollar, to find a glass blower in central Pennsylvania out of University Park. Woo, that was like a needle in a haystack. I mean, we pulled out everything we could. Again, moving the needle in regards to where we're going to go. But to get there, basically, where we see technology, information moves us there. So where we are and to where we want to be. And this is all in your textbook, where we want to be in the future. All right, so I'm not doing as much for international trade here because we do so much of it, and we have a whole chapter dedicated to it. Couple of things from this slide you want to kind of just pinpoint. The fallacy of composition, and just kind of take a look at that particular definition, because it does read volumes in economics in regards to acquisition and whether or not we've really acquired something. Is that better for our economy? And this kind of goes into philosophical thought in regards to what is the best for our economy. And then also for those of you who have taken business statistics, the US 201, you'll get there. Correlations, not necessarily causations. How are things correlated? In business statistics, you'll do regression analysis, and you'll be looking at correlations. How are they correlated? We look at that as well in econ. All right, so enough said in regards to taking notes and things. Let's kind of get down into some problems. So you're going to do this together. I'm going to do a couple in the Chapter 1 appendix, but before I do that, I want to do one with production possibilities curve within our textbook. So again, hope everybody used shower to shower this morning. Turn to page 23. We're going to look at number 5. Number 5. And this is a production possibilities table for consumer goods, automobiles, and which is consumer good, which is the automobiles, the capital good, which is forklifts. So a couple of things here we need to do, and I'll try to pull this up on the screen for those of you that don't have your book. We're going to look at choices. Within this problem, you also see in the other column on page 23, the production possibility table. So I'm going to actually get out of this, and I am going to see about, let me go ahead and pause this. Alrighty. Okay, I think I should be okay. All right, so same information that you had from algebra. We gray everything out in regards to all things equal in econ. We do have, and if you have your book, you can kind of follow along with me. I'm on page 24 and 25. Within this particular construct, we're looking at consumption and income. How consumption rates vary with various levels of income. So we see in our graph, and I'll try to make this a little bigger here, is that as our income increases, we consume more. So it's the same thing like algebra. You just had like letters, right? You had X and Y, A and B. It's the same thing, but we're just using like real stuff like money and how much we consume. All right? So we're dealing with linear. Linear means what in algebra? Does anybody remember? What's linear mean? Straight. So therefore, when I calculate the slope of a straight line, I only have to do it one time. All right? Some other things that, and before I get to the problems, and remember again, I'll put this up. Slopes, rise over run. y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, or the delta of y divided by the delta of x. So in my graph, I have my x-axis and my y. All right? The vertical intercept, where the line intersects the model. So slope, the vertical change divided by the horizontal change, and it is basically that delta, that marginal part that we're looking for. And with that, we're able to write our linear equation. So therefore, from an econ standpoint, kind of going back to what we were looking at here, if I have my linear equation, as long as I know the income, I can determine how much consumption is going to occur in that economy. That's what we use it for. So, with that said, we're going to be calculating the linear equation. There's also instances, and just to watch, look at this, what kind of changes between these two variables, and your book pulls like I said, the pizza and robots thing we have been doing for decades. With this, it's the bananas and the watches. The purchase of bananas or the purchase of watches has nothing to do with the price of bananas going up. So it's infinite. Divorce rate and consumption, the slope is 0 or, just basically flatlined. So let's kind of go to a problem. And as I said, I want to kind of figure on a few things to get you ready for your assignment on Sunday. You will see your assignment on Sunday. You'll have this same problem. So turn in your book to page 29. I'm going to do 3. If I don't get to number 5, at least we'll have 3 done and you can work with that, all right? So I'm on page 29 in your textbook. So what I'm going to do is, for those of you that don't have your textbook, I'm going to go ahead and stop my recording and then just pull that